Hello, trading has closed on February 21st, 2024. We always do our disclaimer first. We'll go over our calls and make some predictions. We'll also talk about this huge rally in the last half hour of trading. It's my trading plan for tomorrow, which is Thursday, 22nd of February, 2024. Let's remember I can be wrong. Trade at your own risk. And if you're going to order my webinar, I'd appreciate it if you had a Gmail address. Thanks. What was our call? We said the commonest thing was a gap and a prompt move outside the day's range. That didn't happen. We gapped, but we didn't move promptly outside the day's range. Next most common is to close little change and a big move the next day. Well, I'm defining little change as a move of 0.25% or less. So we went up 0.13%. That certainly is under a quarter. So we close little change, the second most common thing. And then if everything goes according to plan, we should get a big move tomorrow. So we'll start by saying there's a big move. We look for the pattern with the early low, which is this. And tomorrow should have the early high. Well, during the day, MEJT identified all these moves as false, even this late drop, and said price would retrace, which turned out to be an understatement. So what does this do to the wave count? We're going to pretend just for a minute that we don't know how we're going to open tomorrow. We're going to forget about the futures being up smartly. As of the close, we still had our wave 1. We had an A and a B. We had this one, and we had an ABC with good FEBs, with C equal to 61.8% more than A. This is a FEB retrace of the last move up. If we stop here, and there's a wall into the close, which is often followed by a gap down, if we stop here, you could argue for us beginning wave 3 down. But futures are up so much, I find that pretty unlikely that we stop here. And if we don't stop here, I think this whole idea is going to be killed. That's why we say it's not the only valid count. We've had a long-standing target of 5,087 cash. We thought this was the end of wave 1. But this sure doesn't look like it's going to stop. And if it doesn't stop, we're probably still in blue 5. What happens if blue 5 ends at my target? Well, doesn't like me today. If blue 5 ends at my target, we've got a perfect fit. I mean, I'm trying to make this exact and I can't do it. But, I mean, that's not bad. So if we're not going to stop here, that's the next move up. We gapped down, hit a lower low, closed over all these lows. Now, of course, it can all change tomorrow. And if we open down here, the whole idea is killed. But futures are already way up here. How are we going to go down here? It's hard. I mean, you never know what's going to happen overnight. But it looks like we might still be in the 5th wave, blue 5, and maybe 5,087 is going to print after all. Well, Thursday's pattern has the early, that doesn't mean it prints tomorrow, by the way. Thursday's pattern has the early high regardless of where we open, Typically it's a bearish pattern with a final hour low, but if it isn't bearish, if it's bullish instead, we should see more strength. We close little change today, so the mixed signals rules call for a big move tomorrow. Just to remind ourselves, mixed signals rules is close little change and big move the next day. We gapped down, hit lower low, but closed over intraday lows and even intraday highs. If that's maintained at the open tomorrow, should lead to higher prices even if we don't close higher. Futures are up strongly as I write this, making it likely my preferred wave count's going to fail. That's why we say it isn't the only count. I'm putting my long-standing target of 5,087 cash back into play. The wall into the close often is followed by gapping down and undercutting its origin. Absent a news event of some sort, I just can't see that happening. Doesn't make me right. If it does happen, the wave count argues for a very strong drop. Reversing such strong overnight gains would signal that as well. It's just hard to imagine that happening, but one never knows what's going to happen overnight. This is such bullish action, I'm kind of embarrassed even to mention the possibility of opening down here, but I don't. If I don't mention it, and the unimaginable happens, when we open down here, I get all kinds of emails saying I was calling for a huge rally and we collapsed instead. So this would all be killed if we take this out early, but that looks just out of reach to me. You never know, but I mean, it just does. So if this just holds on to the gains and holds on to the gains overnight, I don't think this high is going to hold. And I think 5,087 cash is put back into play. And I've got very strong resistance at that price. And it's the pattern tomorrow with the early high, and that's today's call.